Alright, I'm going to wait a minute. Yes, I know I'm a little late on tonight's garden gab. Didn't get home till late. I was in the middle of eating supper. And then I realized what time it was and I had to get out here. So, welcome to tonight's garden gab. This is episode 5. This is part 2 of episode 3. Last week we weren't out here because it was really kind of nasty out. High winds. Kind of crazy out, so we decided to do it this week. This is our continuation of how to compost. So let me just refresh your memory. When you compost, you need nitrogen source, carbon source, you need water and air. Okay. For our nitrogen source, we're going to be using buckets. And yes, these are Tidy Cat buckets. Remember, recycle, reduce, reuse. We upcycle these into compost bins that hold about 5 or 6 gallons of food scraps. Nitrogen source is things like coffee grounds, vegetable scraps, tea bags, basic raw food scraps. You don't use no eggs, but you can use the shells. No dairy, no meat, because you don't want to get animals, and any fat that you put in there will go rancid. So I have 2 of these. This one here is from us making hot sauce yesterday. So a lot of vegetables in it. There's even a pumpkin from this fall that finally broke down, or started breaking down, that we have in here. We've got our coffee grounds in here. We got tea bags for making our kombucha. We've got the tops of our tops and stems from our peppers. We don't use our peppers that we make the hot sauce with, just the tops, because the salt content and the amount of vinegar and stuff like that that's in it can be bad for your plants. Vinegar is an all-natural weed killer, so we don't want that in here. So this is our nitrogen source. Carbon source can be newspaper, junk mail minus the little plastic window on the envelope, old scraps of paper, cardboard, as long as it's not a high gloss on it. So corrugated cardboard, your Amazon boxes, just pull the tape off, pull the labels off, take just your basic knife, folding knife, or if you want to use your butcher knife to do it, that's fine too. Cut it up. A big piece of cardboard takes longer to break down than small pieces. More surface area means faster breakdown. The reason I'm not going to add water tonight is our water out here isn't turned on yet. It's still too cold. Excuse me. And I don't want to have a chance of turning it on, it freezing, breaking the pipe, and then we have huge repairs. You can hear my neighbors. The other option is that since some of this stuff has been breaking down for a while in these buckets, moisture comes out of it as it breaks down, so it's already got a lot of moisture in it. How wet do you want your compost? You want it as wet as a damp sponge. So if you were to take it and squeeze it and more than 2 drops comes out, it's too wet. To offset that wet, you can put up crumpled newspaper, more pine shavings. That's tonight's carbon source, is pine shavings. We used to use this when we had chickens. Now I keep it around for compost. I also use it as mulch on our beds. Makes a really good mulch. So we're going to start by dumping all of our compost in here. You can also use old plants. I want to show you really quick. This was a plant from the garden. There's still a little bit of roots in here. This is really broken down. This has become really good compost. Now look at the black nutrients there. Good stuff here. The roots will finish breaking down as it breaks down. Things like this is an old burdock we dug out of the garden. It will break down over time. Just takes a little bit longer. Normally I'd have my machete on here and go psycho on it, just bang, 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 bang. Didn't want to freak anyone out, so not going psycho tonight. Toss it in there. If you have to, take your shovel and just break it up. All this stuff got it put in here in the fall, so it's already been breaking down. The twigs are dry, the plants are dry, they're dead. This is actually really good compost in here right now. You can see all this. If you dig down, I want to show you. You can still see some of the pine shavings. But this was all last year's fall harvest, pulling stuff out of the garden. And just look at that. That's why there's perlite in there. All of our seed starts, we use perlite. So it's not a bad thing. You can add old plants. You can add perlite to it. You have some old fertilizer that's clumped up. You can even throw your fertilizer in here. It'll break down. So let's break this up a little bit. Boy, this is really good stuff. But what I'm going to do is, in the center mass, a compost bin has to be it should be at least 3 by 3 by 3, so 1 cubic yard, so that everything gets held in. You'll get heat. Hey Mandy, nice to see you. You'll get heat, and that heat comes from everything breaking down from the reaction. Heat is not mandatory to have your compost break down. Now, some people are going to tell you can put a tarp or plastic over it, black tarp, black plastic, to get it warm. That's not how you get it warm. Natural reaction from everything breaking down is how you get it warm. So, because this bin, this is a 5 by 5 by 5. It's made with old pallets and some extra wood. It does have a hinge on the front here. So we're gonna dig a hole in the middle so we have some room to put some stuff in. Try to keep it close together, mix stuff up. One other tool we're going to use is a bedding fork, also known as a manure fork. This is what you want to use for compost. Do not use a garden fork. The tines are too big. You're going to be working really hard to get everything broken up. So we're going to make a hole in the middle so we can get everything in. Compost breaks down from the center out. So your outside's going to be cooler than your inside. So let's move some of this around. And if you do this, you can do this with wire, you can do it with old pallets, you can do it with old wood. Stay away from stuff that's painted, okay? Especially old paint. Old paint has lead in it. Old wood could have oil and grease on it. You don't want that in your compost because you don't want that in your bed. Now, one thing people are going to tell you you can't put in here is diseased plants, weeds, grass, things of that nature. Grass will get your compost really hot. So when you mow your lawn, use a bagger. Put it in here. We get 3 to 4 baggerfuls. It gets really hot. How hot do you want it? You want it at least 120 degrees to help facilitate breaking down. 140 is the minimum to kill. Let's say you got tomatoes with blight on them. You put them off. You put them in here. Gets over 140, the blade's dead. It has no host material because it's going to break down really fast. Weeds, weed seeds, grass seed, all dies above 140. Okay, think of when you cook your chicken to 170. Over 140, bacteria starts to die. So you don't want to go above 160 with your compost though. That'll be too hot, and you're going to have gets too hot, you're going to kill off all the good bacteria, all the good fungi. You do want worms in there. Worms will come in around 100 to 105 degrees. So as it stops breaking down, your temperature is going to go down. If you can, you want to fill up your compost bin at once. If you keep adding to it week by week, it is going to slow down the process. Okay. We still add week by week. This is most of the last seasons. I'm okay with adding stuff for this for tonight because in about 30 days this can be broken down, and that's when we're going to want it anyways. You're going to see, as you turn stuff, some white fungus in there. That's good. That's called, I can't even pronounce it, mycorrhiza. That's a good fungus. Mushrooms happen because of the amount of moisture in here. They'll stop, they'll break down. You're not going to end up with mushrooms in your garden. So if you do see some, don't sweat it. Once temperature gets up there, they'll die, they'll go down. Add something to the compost. So this is going to be, I'm going to pour the food scraps in one bucket first. This may be a little juicy. Like I said, things have been breaking down. It's a little noisy. It may stink a little bit at first, but once you put your carbon source on, no big deal. So, first bucket. Okay. If you see mold in here, don't sweat it. Mold happens as stuff breaks down. It's natural. This one here is a little light smelling. That's okay. So, this one really doesn't stink because I tend to put pine shavings in the bottom of our buckets, and that's so they'll soak up any excess liquid. It starts the process of breaking down. So what I'm going to do is take my shovel, spread it out. Okay. Yeah, everything's breaking down really good, and there's actually a little bit of steam coming off here. Steam is a good sign that it's breaking down. Okay, so on this layer, I'm going to open pine shavings. You don't want to go overboard. Pretty much, people get tied up in ratios of how much pine shavings do you add to your compost, or how much carbon to nitrogen. Doesn't matter. The more carbon you have, the slower it's going to break down, but the more nitrogen you have, the stinkier it's going to be. So try to ballpark it, even amounts, 50-50. So if I was to take that bucket I just dumped in there, fill it full of pine shavings, put it on there, equal amounts, no big deal. I'm going to eyeball it. This is a pretty pressed together. It sat out all winter. I'll put it over. Sprinkle it, no big deal. I'm not going to go too much because it already had pine shavings in the bucket. So, already, I can smell that. It's amazing. The pine shavings, your carbon source gets on there, the smell goes away. So, second bucket. This is much fresher stuff. This is stuff from this past week. We go through about 12 to 15 of these through the winter. So when it comes time to do it in the winter, we can actually fill up a bin really fast. So one more to add. Now, one quick note. If you want your compost to break down faster, and this is going to sound gross, if you're using, like last night I cut up peppers and onions to make rice bowls. If I would have wanted them to break down faster, throw it in the blender, add a cup of water, turn it on, let it puree, pour it in, gonna break down much faster. These whole pumpkins are gonna take about 6 weeks to break down. They're already starting to break down because they're already rotting. But if you were to put pureed stuff in here, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, breakdown. So I'm going to spread that out a little more. Okay, one thing that's in here that I did not mention. Some people are going to tell you you cannot put citrus in here. No oranges, no lemons, no limes, no grapefruit. Totally bogus. The reason they say that is worms do not like citrus. Worms will not come in when the citrus is there. But when this all breaks down and decomposes, worms come in. Remember, temperature's got to go down below 100 or 105 for worms to come in. If you see worms in your compost and the temperature is below 100, you've got good compost. So, put in some more pine shavings. Let me grab the bale. And then I'm going to show you a fun little tool you don't have to have, but it's good to have when you compost. So you know what's going on. So you know if you're hitting those temps. If you don't have it, look for signs, like I said, steam, warmth. If you can stick your hand in there and it just feels warm, you're 100 to 110. If you put your hand in there and it feels too hot to hold your hand in there, you're over 140. So, just a ballpark. Spread this around. Again, lots of moisture already in here. Don't need to add any right now. One other option you can do for moisture, if you do not have your hose turned on like we don't, I could have brought out a 2-gallon watering can. It would have been more than enough to do this. So, get eyeball equal amounts. No aroma. There was when I poured it in. Now, stuff's starting to break down. It's a bad thing about living in an urban area. Lots of noise from city streets. It's over here. This is a handy dandy little tool you can get from Amazon for 13 bucks for doing compost. It is actually a compost thermometer. Okay, and I'm going to move in here a little bit to show you. So you'll notice light green, dark green, gray. This gray area means you're getting really hot. You're killing the weed seeds. You're killing fungus, things of that nature. Dark green is your target area. That means it's active. If it's 100 or below, right in here, okay, then it's slowing down. So, this right now is showing the outside temperature of 50 degrees. So, what this does is this, you take this, stick it in the middle of your compost, boom. I turn it so it's towards our office window. So, I actually put it in at an angle, like this. So I can look out my window and I can see where that needle is. And if that needle is straight up, I know it's active. It's to the right, I know it's hot. If it's a little bit towards the left, I know it's warming up or cooling down. So, do you have to turn your compost? Some people say you have to turn it all the time. I have had a compost bin. Like I said, I put everything in here in October, November. I even put stuff from the garden. I put old plants we use on our hay racks and our hanging pots. We have these great big huge coconut coir things, which you all know I use coconut coir to plant in. That breaks down. Okay, toss everything in here, let it sit for the winter. I have compost just by sitting all winter. I didn't turn it, nothing happened. If you turn it, you go in, you take the outside and put it in, you take the inside, you put it out, so everything mixes up. The way I do it's called lasagna layering. Okay, lasagna compost. So you go nitrogen, carbon, just like you go meat, tomato sauce, noodle, ricotta. Jenny's telling me to move along. I know it's getting kind of long. Compost is a long thing. So we've got it going. We don't have to turn it. It's going to warm up. I'll see steam off this in about 3 days. So that's how you do compost. Quick, easy, simple. Of course, Jenny wouldn't say that was quick. She'd say I was a long-winded person. But bin, at least 3x3x3. You can use wire, pallets. You can just make a big pile and just leave it there. You don't have to contain it. I like mine contained because then it's not everywhere. So that's how you compost. Hope everyone learned something today. I have fun doing this. So you guys have a good day, and I'm going to go in where it's a little bit warmer. Have a good night.